Hello there, everyone. We're really thrilled to be back in the studio with our guests, Nakara Johns and Kendall Becker, for FFANY Trend Watch. Nakara Johns is the senior editor of Footwear News. Welcome back, Nakara.
Hi, Sandy. Thank you for having us again. Excited to be here.
And Kendall, you're the fashion director of Trendalytics. I'm excited to hear what you're up to lately, too.
Hi, everybody. Excited to discuss.
So today we're going to be talking about spring trends of 2026 and also what we're seeing around the globe in terms of footwear. So I'm going to start off by sharing a little bit about what I've been seeing and hearing and reading. And I would love to get your take on it, Nakara and Kendall. So I'll start off with Nakara, because I know you've been doing a little bit of travel. You took a trip to Hawaii, and I'd love to hear a little bit about what you saw in terms of footwear trends there.
Yeah, so it was perfect for resort wear. I was seeing a lot of thong sandals, flip-flops, which is a huge trend that's continued from last spring to this spring. And then also, espadrilles in those typical type of wedges that you see kind of in these resort type places. But really going back to the thong sandal, I think that's fun for spring. During Copenhagen Fashion Week last season, or last summer, I should say, a lot of those girls there were going to work and going to their shows on their bikes with their flip-flops, and it's continuing even in Hawaii on vacation. And I think you're going to start seeing them now in New York too as the weather gets warmer.
That's great. I've seen a lot of that too. And it used to be the transition shoe, right? That you would wear in between like your day to night or something. You pull them out of your bag just to wear them for comfort. But I do see them worn in every aspect. And I'd love to hear from you, Kendall. I know you went to Coachella and you've been following the trends there. So tell us a little bit about what you saw.
Yeah, absolutely. Just coming off of a busy couple weeks in the desert. I just had to move out to LA, so that was a fun way to ring that in. But Coachella had a really fun trends this season. I had so much fun doing some trend deep dive after the fact. Of course, got to see it on the ground, but digging into the data and now what people are posting about and seeing what really resonated. Been obsessed with the Moto boot. That is just like the coolest updates that I think we've been seeing within that category. Really started to come back with that flat boot, the riding boot, but now it has that really cool, gritty edge and love seeing the styling back to some more of like sweeter dresses and more bohemian apparel. So it was a really nice contrast that people were playing with.
Interesting. It was a little different, where we talked a lot about Western in the
Yes.
last episode. Do you feel like you saw that still? I saw a lot of the platform sneakers and a lot of the platform boots at Coachella,
Mm-hmm.
um, as well as obviously low profile sneakers as well. But did you see a lot of
Yeah.
Western there?
There was some Western, as it goes with, like being out in the desert at Coachella. But if it was Western, it did have a bit of grit to it. It was like a worn in leather or it had a cool buckle. So it was having these updates to the Western boot that still made it feel really fresh. Then platforms in general, even on boots, within sneakers too, we're definitely seeing that come back of ways. Of course, you still want to look great when you're out in the desert or in these terrains, all the way down to muddy Lollapalooza and whatnot that's going to come at us later this festival season. But looking for that heel in an attainable way, platforms were definitely hanging out strong to kick off festival.
Absolutely. All right. So we should get into what the hottest trend of today is in terms of women's trends. Everywhere is the ballet flat, the ballerina sandal, the Mary
Yes.
Jane with the elastic strap or the buckled strap or with the bows. Tell me what that looks like on your side, Nakara.
Yeah, so specifically the ballet sneaker is really just hot. It's everywhere on TikTok, on celebrities, street style. So you're seeing it's just the new iteration of the ballet flat, and Louis Vuitton has done a version of it called the Sneakerina, which is just literally a ballet flat, or almost like a ballerina shoe, and with the sneaker. The newer brand called Vivea has a more affordable pair. Crocs has one. Adidas and Bad Bunny just came out with a collab called the Ballerina, and I have a stat here that from one of our reporters found that they talked to StockX and they said that sales for sneakers with the term ballerina and ballet has jumped more than 1,000% from February to March. So this is what the consumers are looking for, and I think it's interesting too because it's while it's still a sneaker, you're still seeing them in like that ballet pink as well. So it's feminine, but also functional too with the sneaker. So I think that's really fun and exciting right now.
Yeah, the data on it is unbelievable at the moment. I was just looking through our oh my gosh, sneaker data at Trendalytics recently, looking at our top 10 terms within women's sneakers. 4 out of the 10 were all revolving around ballerina sneakers, sneakerina, all of that. So it's really owning consumer search, which is impressive too, because it goes past, just that in the know fashion consumer, but is reaching the masses and holding on really strong. So I think that's fascinating.
That's great. I mean, it's really taken over, right? And it's crept into that sneaker land as you just shared, Nakara. And I want to talk a lot about what's happening in the sneaker world as well. I
Mhm.
have seen just a bunch of different variations of the sneakers. So what's your take on that, Nakara, in terms of like where that's going?
Yeah, I think it's kind of steady of what we've been seeing with the low profiles.
Yeah.
Every brand has their own version of, I guess, a samba. We talked about this last time too. But what I
Hmm.
think is interesting now, and I think we might get into this a little later, but it's really that personalization. These shoe charms are everywhere. I mean, it was really started off on handbags, which saw a lot of data on TikTok too for handbags, but it's definitely trickled down to sneakers. Miu Miu did this on the runway for Spring 25, and Coach recently did this on Well, and they have a kind of like this Soho sneaker. It's called just this classic white distressed low profile shoe, and now but they added these charms. So I think we're seeing that more and more to really bring new life and personalization to some of your classics. So I think that's
Hmm.
exciting. I don't know, Kendall, you've been seeing that as well.
Yeah, I have. I think personalization is so key across all categories. Seeing this within apparel, accessories, even beauty, of ways that people can add their own personal spin on anything is such a huge win. I think we really saw this come to fruition, like looking back a couple years ago when we were looking at more of those like kitschy or whimsical, cheeky, however you want to categorize it, sort of trends, whether it was update on a heel, very Loewe of it all. And I think that that's great and really fun, but it's still a craving for people who that might not fit into their personal style to still want to lean into something that gives a personalization. So really with those like handbag charms or foot charms, even lip gloss and phone charms are all blowing up right now. It started very like cutesy. Here's a cupcake. Here's a little, it's a little character. And now it feels like it's elevating a lot. A lot of like mystic motifs are coming in, or there's like, food that's maybe a little chicer, like it's a martini, things of that nature, that it's just giving us a wider range for everyone to lean into their personal style, but still achieve that look.
That's fun. I mean, I think it's a little bit cooler to have something that, brings a little bit more personality to a low profile sneaker. So I saw that on Miu Miu too, and I thought that was really cool. There's beads, there's color,
Mhm.
there's,
Yeah.
certain ways that it could be a little bit more expressive, and I love that.
Hmm.
Also seeing for the sneaker landscape, the and a blending of other categories in terms of like taekwondo with the sneaker. I think Adidas does something like that. You called it the ballerina, sneaker. Also, I know that Solomon and Merrill have sneakers that are kind of blending with the trail run, kind of more performance sneaker. That's really cool with some fun colorways and whatnot.
Yeah.
What's your take on that, Kendall?
Yeah, I think this is a really fun opportunity right now. Again, really expanding across not just footwear, but within apparel as well. That there's so much influence of sports, this whole globalization where we're all suddenly, fans of F1 and soccer, football. And it's really like and uniting everybody as a community. So I think it's a cool way to be tapping into this, even if you're not necessarily a sport person. But being able to integrate that into something like your sneaker is a really fun touch, and playing within the colorways as well. I think that's been an interesting approach where it's giving, I'm sure, we'll talk a little bit more about color later, but just to touch that surface where it adds, maybe if it feels like a tougher style, but it's all of a sudden done in a pink. So it's being able to complement it and feels more approachable to maybe an unexpected consumer. And then finding ways to approach color where there might be a really nice neutral ground, but we're adding in these fun pops that can take it home and have it be less serious as a hiking sneaker. But all of a sudden now there's some neon orange on it and it's pretty cool and fun.
Yeah, I agree. And I've seen the sneaker um, go into new places like with the loafers. I've seen
Yeah.
sneakers and loafers have this big moment. I think that Hoka's doing it, and I think maybe Puma. I can't remember
New
which
Balance.
balance is
Yeah.
doing it.
New Balance
Mm,
and Hoka.
What's your take on that, Nakara?
I think it just gives another option for, I think, leaning more towards men to have a shoe that's not maybe so fancy as a loafer versus some of those sneakerheads, and then not just strictly a loafer. It's more wearable. It can slip them on. And I think I don't know if they're dressy, but I think it's fun for that sneakerhead to have something else in their arsenal. And I think it's fun. I think it got a lot of people talking,
Yeah,
and I think people like to wear things that can start a conversation, like a Croc or an UGG. Back when they started, and I think it's the same thing for the loafer. I don't know if it'll be here forever, but I think it's great.
it's
I think
having a
it's great
moment.
right now. Yeah, and it's a lot of them are
agreed.
affordable. They're not,
Yeah.
astronomical, and why not get them?
Yeah, and I'm going to bring something back that I brought up a couple of times in the last couple of times that we talked. Um, Bringing back the preppy boat shoe. Um, I think that Sperry has done a nice job of coming up with some creative ways of creating some buzz around it. What's your take on that, Kendall? Have you seen that?
Yeah, I feel like it's really having its moment right now where we've been anticipating it for so long. And then now it's really landing, starting to see that really resonate within Instagram and TikTok. And it's spanning age groups too, where of course we often see a revival coming back just from a younger set because they're having fun with it. But it really is spanning age groups here. And it feels like it's being really done in a fun way, but also, again, can be very adaptable to personal style. That's what I always say. I always have like three key indicators when I look at trends and how much that, I want to say, heck yeah, go invest in that. And I think wearability, adaptability is so important. So seeing that come into light, I think it's really proving that this is a cool one to continue on. And with the loafer conversation, ballet flats, Mary Janes, they all have that really nice and preppy undertone. So I think all of them coming back as a whole together just makes sense that that one's here to stay and is having its time to shine.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I
Um,
think it's interesting too. I wanted to just add because Kendall was talking about
Yeah.
juxtaposition with the moto boots and
Mhm.
wearing more bohemian type of looks. And I think it's the opposite with the Sperry
Yeah.
like boat shoes. So you're seeing a lot of like fashion girls now pairing these, I guess, preppy shoes, but with more fashionable apparel. Whether it's like a wide leg pant and it's not, they don't look necessarily preppy, but
Yeah.
they're using the shoe. And I think that's fun. And I think that's why I think people should definitely have that in their closet because they're classics. They're not going anywhere. It's just you have to evolve how to style them. And I think that's what you're seeing
Totally.
on TikTok, like everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see what collabs may come out of this.
yeah.
Ooh, so
Yeah.
true. Yeah, I think that's a fun opportunity.
Hmm.
So now that we've covered kind of the broad stroke trends of what we're seeing today, I want to hear about what some of those details mean for the future of 2026, right? So I'm just going to ask you kind of quick questions, and you'll say, here to stay, or I'm thinking that it's on its way out, right?
Mhm.
Um, so let's talk a little bit about beads, studs, bows. Kendall, what's your take?
I'm loving beads. I think that looks so great. It's just started to hit the market and excited to see that continue on. I think that's going to be really strong. Metallic details, seashells, those are like the ones I'm loving right now that I'm excited to see.
Nakara, what's your take on that?
I agree with Kendall. I think you're going to be seeing that continue.
Great. What about the toe shape for 2026? I've seen all across the board, round, square, boxish, still pointy. So what are we gonna kind of look forward to for 2026? Nakara.
I think, well, it was interesting because you saw Marc Jacobs did the dramatic elongated pointed toe. That was like more fun. But I think you're going to see a mix of really everything that you just said and more like the rounded square is what's happening now with that ballerina type
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
shoe. So I think keep an eye out for that. I don't know if they'll be as dramatic as the Marc Jacobs like toe, but I think keep an eye out for that. And I still think a square toe is here to stay. Maybe again, not so dramatic, but you see it in a Western boot in some cases. Um, yeah.
And what about I'm going to ask Kendall something different.
Mm-hmm.
What about colors? I mean, we've talked about the neutrals and the mochas for so long, but I
Right.
have seen kind of bright colors coming back, and of course,
Mm-hmm.
butter yellow. We cannot talk about trends without talking about butter yellow. But what are we looking forward to in 2026? More pastels or more neutrals?
Mm-hmm.
What are you feeling?
Yeah, I think neutrals will be our anchor, of course, as they always are. But what we really saw on the runway is both within, again, apparel and footwear was this key on the color combos. And I think having a nice neutral ground and then upgrading with different combinations is a very cool approach. Of course, it's not going to work with every single shoe. So, what I'm really feeling for more of winter is, as we talked about in our last one, we talked about those near neutral shades like rich burgundies, olives, like a gorgeous navy, all of that good stuff, like very rich in luxe. But I think moving forward, as we look into 2026, we're looking at two opposite camps. I think we're looking into these brights having a moment. Lots happening within lime and bright orange. And then on the other side, these very near neutrals, but like soft, the buttery yellow. I like don't even want to keep saying ice blue because we're still seeing it, but it is still, it's so great and is hanging out, but it feels a little bit more powdery versus icy. It's less sharp and it feels a little bit more sweet and more near neutral. And same thing with that baby pink and a mauve.
Right, the
Yeah.
dusty rose and the smoky blues I've seen, that
Yes.
kind of approaching again into everything, and
Mm-hmm.
especially apparel. Um, and of course, in terms of apparel, the slouchy, relaxed, boxy cuts, I've seen
Yeah.
everywhere. A lot of the menswear trends on women and men, obviously with, pinstripes and, you know, oversized blazers and whatnot. Nakara, what's your take on that for 2026?
Yeah, I'm not exactly the apparel expert, but I do think that I think I'm honestly I can't stop thinking about we were talking earlier in the micro shorts and like the biggest like
Yeah.
apparel trend right now. And I think going festival season is only going to continue. So I do
Mm-hmm.
think that's just all I could think about are these shorts because I think they're again another conversation starter.
Yeah.
And I'm curious to
Yeah.
see how people will style like that apparel with shoes. How can you wear it? And Kendall, I don't know what you saw during Coachella, but
Right. Oh, I think it was a really cool concept because it gave the shoes such a moment to shine that it really allowed for like you could do so much with the legs. So like you could go sneaker, you could go boot, you could go flat, like you could do absolutely anything. And I think that was with such like an interesting opportunity. Whereas, I love a relaxed trouser and I think that that is like here to stay, relaxed fit bottoms. But it is tougher to be able to play with boots in that way. So, I think that's where we're really seeing the ballet flat, the slippers, loafers, like all having their time to shine in the low profile sneaker. So then now we're like, oh my God, yay, we get a micro short or micro mini dress, whatever it might be. It's like, yeah, we can bring those boots out again. And this is exciting.
That's great. I have one last question for both of you, and then please share if I missed something that you've been seeing that's really exciting to kind of add to this conversation. But I want to talk about the silver and the gold sneakers, the metallic sneakers. Seen them everywhere. They're just super hot and exciting. And of course, the animal print sneakers as well. Um, is that going to continue on, Nakara, for 2026? Or you feel like it's just like a trend that's happening right now and it's going to soon fade?
I think metallics always come in and out, right? But I think accent metallics are, I think that's going to continue on. I know New Balance and Coco Golf just released a collaboration together for her own line. I believe it was her line of shoes. And there are just hints of gold and silver metallic throughout the whole thing. So I do think that will be here to stay. Maybe you're not going full gold shoe. Maybe it's that full silver.
Right.
But I think that now is also a core closet staple for women and men too.
That's
So
great.
I think it could go either or.
Yeah. Kendall?
Yeah. Yeah. I think an accent is so strong and definitely here to stay. Gold was really overpowering at, I think, festival season, what we've seen so far from Miami Music Week to Stagecoach. Gold has been the winner. Whereas looking back at the runways, I feel like it was kind of a head to head between gold and silver. And gold really continued to take off of what I'm seeing on a more, out in the wild basis. So I think that'll be interesting to watch it continue on. And who knows, maybe it's going to play more into a bronze, or how can we continue to evolve that? But maybe that warm feeling is something that we're going to continue with.
That's great. Have I missed anything, Nakar or Kendall?
The only other thing maybe is golf. I think golf is having a bigger moment too. Jimmy Choo had another collaboration for golf. And, we always talk about tennis, but I do think golf is maybe going to come up a little more than we think. So I think that's something to look forward to.
Okay.
I love that.
Is it replacing pickleball?
I don't know. Pickleball, I don't know if it's going anywhere. But that conversation on fashion and shoes, though, has seemed to slow down on pickleball. And it seems to be gearing back over to golf.
Okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Kendall, have I forgotten anything from your side?
What I'm really fascinated about right now, which we touched on lightly, but these very ladylike silhouettes and how they're continuing to come back. I've been seeing a lot of conversations about the peep toe and pumps coming back, ankle straps with really nice, delicate buckles, and it's very pretty elevated, feels sophisticated. And I think that's been a really interesting evolution where we saw so much whimsy and very almost more of a girlhood vibe. And now it feels like we're evolving a bit into this sophistication, embracing the womanhood, but still having that feminine slant. So I'm excited to see that continue. I'm also very excited to see, which I mentioned on our last chat, with satin coming back into play and how that was going to resonate. So I'm excited to see now that a lot of those styles have hit the market, how the reads are on them. And maybe we'll see that continue into next year as well if they're looking good.
And flats overall in general are still they're still here and they're not going anywhere. And I don't know if you saw that Tory Burch's Reba flat from the 2000s is officially for sale now, that she launched them on the runway last year, but you can buy them now. So I'm really curious to see if they take off like they did in the early 2000s.
Yeah.
Those are great additions and comments. And I also agree, Kendall, with the strappy sandals, that delicate strappy sandal on the kitten heel. I've seen that everywhere with some of that's great. Thank you, Nakara. Thank you, Kendall. I think we covered a lot and we stayed within a good amount of time, so I appreciate that as well. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate your input. I really trust the two of you to bring me up to date on what you're seeing on the runway, in the festivals, in your travels, and what's to come for 2026. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Sandy.
Shoe-In has been brought to you by the FDRA, the Footwear Industries Association focused on retail, trade, politics, and fashion, helping create and enhance conversations on all things footwear. For information about FDRA, visit fdra.org.